People often imagine that anniversaries are filled with flowers, laughter, and happy memories. Ours started that way. It just didn't stay that way. My name is Sarah. The evening marked 12 years since my husband Ryan and I had exchanged our wedding vows. Ryan insisted on making all the plans. He chose the restaurant. He made the reservation weeks in advance. He even told me not to worry about buying him a gift. Just come, he'd said with a smile. I've already planned everything. Looking back, that sentence meant far more than I realized. The restaurant overlooked the river. Soft piano music played in the background. Candles flickered on every table. Everything felt perfect. Ryan looked unusually calm, not nervous, not excited, just peaceful. After we ordered dinner, I raised my glass. To 12 years. He smiled. To 12 years. For a while, we talked about ordinary things: work, our daughter starting middle school, a vacation we'd been discussing for the summer. Nothing seemed unusual. Then dessert arrived. Ryan didn't touch it. Instead, he slipped one hand into the inside pocket of his jacket. At first, I assumed he'd forgotten his wallet. Instead, he placed a small black hotel key card on the table between us. It slid across the polished wood until it stopped beside my plate. I looked down at it. The hotel's logo was embossed in silver. I recognized the name immediately. It was one of the most expensive hotels in the city. I looked back at Ryan. He held my gaze. Then very quietly he said, "It's not for us." For a second, the sounds of the restaurant disappeared. I could only hear my own heartbeat. "What do you mean?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he gently pushed the key a little closer to me. "I need you to trust me." I laughed nervously. "Ryan, you don't hand your wife a hotel key on your anniversary and ask her not to ask questions." "I know." "Then explain." He glanced toward the restaurant entrance before speaking again. "In about 20 minutes, someone is going to arrive." I frowned. "Who?" "You'll recognize them." My stomach tightened. "What does that mean?" Ryan looked genuinely conflicted. "I wish I could tell you everything now, but if I do, the surprise won't matter." I stared at the key again. Room 814. No name, no note, just a number. Every terrible possibility raced through my mind. Was another woman staying there? Had Ryan booked a room for someone else? Was this his way of confessing something? I wanted to demand answers. Instead, the restaurant's front door opened. Ryan looked up. His expression changed instantly. He smiled. Then he quietly whispered, "They're here." I turned toward the entrance, and the moment I saw who had just walked inside, I nearly dropped the hotel key. I slowly stood from my chair. At first, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Walking through the restaurant entrance was my older brother, David. Standing beside him was my father. I hadn't spoken to either of them in almost 11 years. Not since the argument that tore our family apart after my mother's funeral. For more than a decade, birthdays passed in silence. Christmas came and went without a single phone call. Eventually, I convinced myself that chapter of my life was over. Ryan gently squeezed my hand. "Sit down. I've been working on this for months." I looked at him in disbelief. "You knew?" He nodded. "I found David's number last year. I called him without telling you. At first, he hung up on me, but I kept trying." My eyes filled with tears as David slowly approached our table. He looked older. His hair had turned gray around the temples, but the nervous expression on his face reminded me of the brother I grew up with. He stopped beside the table. "I wasn't sure you'd want to see me." For a moment, none of us spoke. Then my father quietly said, "I don't expect forgiveness. I only wanted one chance to say I'm sorry." The words hit me harder than I expected. For years, I'd imagined this moment. I thought I'd be angry. Instead, I just felt tired. Ryan stood and pulled out two empty chairs. "I'll give you some time." As he stepped away, I noticed he quietly slipped the hotel key back into his pocket. I frowned. "Ryan, you said the key wasn't for us." He smiled. "It isn't. It's for them." I looked at him confused. "What are you talking about?" He reached into his wallet and unfolded a reservation confirmation. I booked them a room tonight. They drove almost 6 hours to get here. I didn't want them making that drive back after such an emotional evening. I stared at him. You planned all of this? He nodded. For 7 months. I wasn't trying to surprise you. I was trying to give you something you've secretly missed for years. David looked at me with tears in his eyes. I wanted to come sooner. I just didn't know if you'd slam the door in my face. Dad lowered his head. The day your mother died, I handled everything the wrong way. I lost my daughter while trying not to lose myself. I'm sorry. For the first time in 11 years, I believed him. Dinner grew cold as we talked. We remembered Mom's terrible singing while cooking, the camping trips we'd taken when I was little, the silly traditions we'd abandoned after she passed away. Hours slipped by without any of us noticing. When the restaurant finally began closing, Ryan handed the hotel key to my father. This is yours. Dad looked surprised. You already paid? Ryan smiled. Consider it an anniversary gift. My father shook his head. I can't accept that. Ryan laughed softly. You already have. Outside the restaurant, the four of us stood together beneath the city lights. David hugged me first. Then, after a long pause, so did my father. Neither embrace erased 11 years of pain, but they gave us something we hadn't had in a very long time. A beginning. As we watched them drive toward the hotel, I turned to Ryan. You didn't save our anniversary. You saved my family. He wrapped his arm around my shoulders. I couldn't promise we'd fix the past. I just wanted to make sure you had the chance. Months later, family dinners slowly became a tradition again. They weren't perfect. Sometimes old disagreements resurfaced. Sometimes conversations became awkward. But nobody walked away. Because one anniversary, a hotel key that wasn't meant for us, unlocked something far more valuable than a room. It opened the door we had all been too afraid to knock on.